I'm back in the world of Renault Sport.
It's the perfect weather for trying out sporty cars, because of course it's winter. And I have the Megane RS here, but it is the trophy version, which of course has a few differences with the standard one. The first one, and probably the most important one, is that you've got the word trophy here at the front. Then the second one is you have red brake calipers, and you also have the cup suspension, which means, well, this one has standard cup suspension, and otherwise it's an optional extra on the normal RS. But this means that it's a firmer ride, and it also has electronic differential locking, which is pretty important if you want to drive fast through the corners, even though a lot of people don't really know about it. Anyway, and the last thing, which is quite nice, the engine now has 300 horsepower.
Okay, technically, it has a smidge under 300 horses and a slight bit more torque than the standard RS. The Megane RS is still very sexy looking. I especially like these LEDs in the shape of the Renault Sport badge. A fantastic and creative addition, something more manufacturers should be playing around with. These optional alloys cost you €1,000, which look great.
I know this is not really part of the whole trophy thing, but I do have to say I love the color choices you have for these Megane RSs. Look at this one, for example. You've got some yellow shades here, orange shades, depending on how the light shines on the car. I love it. It looks fantastic and interesting, and all these nice little metallic details. And also the exhaust, which you can also hear with the tractor over there, is quite fun. But there's no Akrapovic exhaust at the moment. I heard rumors that there might be one in the future though.
The previous RS with the Akrapovic exhaust system was superb, but I do have to say Renault worked hard at making their own system sound excellent as well. There's no major changes in the interior, but I do love the fact that they kept the manual handbrake.
Okay, let's face the facts. You don't really want to hear me babble and waffle on and on about this car. You just want to see it accelerate. Unfortunately, there's a problem with that, and quite a big one. Well, the weather. The road is wet, there's pebbles on it, so this is really not going to be... Let me get out of this guy's way. This is really not going to be the best acceleration. But anyway, because you probably want it, here we go. This is a manual car, so let's try this. 100. It's quite good for a front-wheel drive car in these conditions with a slippery road and pebbles. That's actually quite good. I am in sport mode. I do not have traction control off, so it was probably taking some of that away. But yeah, I'd rather have it on in this weather. There's a little bit of torque steer once you go to full throttle and boost comes on, but it's actually not bad once you learn the car and you actually expect it. The first couple of times I was a little bit surprised when I did it. I was like, whoa, okay, hold on, horsey, where are you going? Now, I would also like to show you how fun this car can be round the corners. But again, the bloody weather. This is really not the best time for this car, unfortunately. What I can say is that I was a little bit brave, and I did try it through some serpentining roads, and it's actually surprisingly good even in the wet. A little bit scary because, you know, you're not used to the car that much, but surprisingly good. So yeah, even in the wet you can have fun, but this is definitely a car for nice weather. I would not recommend getting it if you live in an area where there's a lot of, well, rain and especially snow. But that's probably self-explanatory. So apart from the differences with the normal Renault Megane RS that I've already mentioned, really once you start driving it, you feel more of those differences, even though it's been a while since I've driven a Megane RS. But the trophy suspension setting, the setup, is definitely a lot firmer than the normal one. I mean, even the normal one was fairly bouncy, but this one especially, suddenly you realize, this road that I thought was so nice and smooth is actually a horrible bouncing disaster. So, as far as that goes, this probably isn't the best car for older people. Let's put it that way. So if you're 18 or 20 or something, and your daddy buys you this car, that's fine. If you buy it yourself and you have the money, even better. But yeah, it's not really recommended if you're 50 plus years old or you have problems with your back, because it is quite firm, like I said. It's not, I'm actually quite surprised. Here's me waffling again. I'm really surprised by the fact that these Recaro seats, these bucket sport seats, are very, very good in the corners. They make sure that you stay in place, but even though they're firm, they're actually not that uncomfortable. And maybe even saying the word uncomfortable is not very fair to them. I would say they're reasonably comfy. I wouldn't necessarily drive in this car, I don't know, across Europe, but they are reasonably comfy, especially if you're going slower and the road is smoother like this. They're completely acceptable, which is quite nice. If the road gets rough though, then the going gets tough. So driving this Megane RS, the only reason why I'm driving fairly slowly here, well, one, the weather again, and two, because I want you to hear me, so I'm not like this, oh yes, faster. Anyway, this is a 6-speed manual. It's quite good. The gearbox, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it does feel fairly mechanical to shift gears, but it's a little bit weird. It doesn't feel as good as it could, I feel like, sometimes. If you're just shifting very slowly and normally, fine, but if you're going for very fast shifts, sometimes it's almost possible to miss maybe fifth or something. Anyway, I digress. It's a lot of fun to drive. The driving position is excellent. These seats support you at every point. It's brilliant. And of course you have the RS drive button down here, which you can press, and you have various settings: comfort, neutral, sport, race, and personified, or not personified, but personal settings, where you can just set up everything as you wish. So if you put it onto comfort or neutral, most of the stuff is calmed down. And also the valves in the exhaust close. So you're not going to get any, oh my god, this road is bad. You're not going to get any pops and bangs back there, which I have to admit are part of the reason why I have the car in sport mode most of the time, because it's just too much fun. Let's see. I won't be able to get them any. Did you hear that? You might have not heard that, because the road is really bad. That was not a very great place to pick. But anyway, it really brings the inner child out of me. Actually, it doesn't have to, because I am a child, but it's a lot of fun. Once you are in sport mode or race mode, which is even more sporty. The valves open and you just get this really lovely burble out of the exhaust. It's actually surprisingly sort of deep for a 4-cylinder car, 1.8 at that. So listen to that. Bum, bum. It's such a childish thing to do, but I love it. I really love it. It's so much fun to do. In fact, it's so much fun to do that I keep driving in sport mode and just go throttle, off throttle, throttle, off throttle. Because once you lift off, it starts going back there. So much fun. Let's talk about what we shouldn't talk about in a car like this, and that's the fuel consumption. Well, the average fuel consumption, we did about, 530 kilometers right now, and the average fuel consumption is 9.7 liters per 100 kilometers. Ouch. But of course, you have to remember that this was not really economical driving. I usually like to do economical driving with normal cars to show you, what sort of realistic consumption you can get. And here, I didn't drive it very economically just because I wanted to show you realistic fuel consumption. Because if you buy a car like this, you won't be driving like an old grandma all the time. So what I did was I usually have it on sport mode, which I believe it does use a little bit more fuel because the engine is, at the top of its level, blah, 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 I think. But I drove fairly normally and had a bit of fun every now and then, which is, I think, how people will mostly drive this car. You cannot just drive it on the very edge, on the limit all the time, because you will crash somewhere unless you're just living next to a racetrack. So yeah, 9.7, I don't know, for almost 300 horsepower, I don't really think that's so bad. And, if you were to drive it very, very, very economically and normally, I don't know, I think you could get it to like 6.5, something like that. Maybe, if you were really, really careful with it. But like I said, this car isn't really for that. It isn't meant for that. It's meant for transforming fuel into this. And it does that pretty well. So finally, the question, would I buy this car? The answer is yes. It really depends. The price is actually not bad for a car like this, if you think about it. $34,000 for a more sporty version of the normal Megane RS. That's really not that bad. 300 horsepower and all of that. I mean, and you have a lot of fun. That's not bad. But the thing is, it's really not a car for everyday driving. It's not a car you will take to the shops every day. It's not a car you will take your kids to school with every day. I mean, you can, but it's not really meant for that. The trophy suspension is a little bit stiff. And the fuel consumption, like I said, it's not the most frugal. So it really is a car then that you would buy to have a lot of fun for the weekend if you already own another car or two in the garage. So something comfortable. So you can take that every day, and then once you want to have a bit of fun and just, race somewhere, maybe if there's a racetrack near you, you buy a car like this and you will have a lot of fun. So just like the previous Megane RS generation, this is great, but I wouldn't drive it every day. However, I do have to give you a little caveat there. This is better. Yeah, nice. Going to my side of the road. This is better than the previous generation, definitely as far as comfort is concerned. That was really I will punch you in the gut until you stop driving me. You will have fun, but I'll punch you in the gut. This one, not so much. This one is like, I'll massage you roughly until you stop driving, but you'll have a lot of fun doing it.
The Megane RS Trophy starts at just over 34,000 euros. For the double clutch version with all of the extras, you'll be paying 45,000 euros. For such a hot model, I think the base price is pretty good.